Hello, everyone. This is Scholar Tarek, welcoming you to another episode of Raw Deal, where I go ahead and look at the most recent episodes of WWE Monday Night Raw and to give a reaction slash review of it. This week, we're going to be discussing the Raw after WWE Hell in a Cell. So let's go ahead and just dive right in, shall we? So the show opens with Drew McIntyre and coming down to the ring and giving a promo on him pretty much accepting the fact that he did indeed lose his Hell in a Cell match and the WWE Championship to Randy Orton, but promising that he will regain the WWE Championship sooner rather than later. And before he can really continue on, kind of hinting at the fact that he may be all smiles, but inside he's basically absolutely furious. Out comes the new Mr. Money in the Bank, The Miz, and well, I guess we can really call his lackey, John Morrison, to tell Drew that it's okay that he's no longer the WWE champion. Second place isn't that bad. In fact, he's lucky that he's no longer the WWE champion, because now that Miz is the new Mr. Money in the Bank, Drew doesn't have to worry about him cashing in on him. Of course, Drew's not taking that very well, so he laughs as he walks to Miz and just gives him a headbutt, taking down Miz, and gives belly-to-belly suplexes to John Morrison. And before he can really continue attacking on Morrison, Miz attacks his bad leg that he got from his Hell in a Cell match, just so they can get away. After commercial break, it's announced that McIntyre will be facing The Miz later on in the night. But yeah, coming back from the commercial break, it's also revealed that the main story for this Raw is the build for WWE Survivor Series, as they are continuing the Raw versus SmackDown theme for WWE Survivor Series. So we get our first Survivor Series qualifying match for the men's team with AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy. And of course, these two guys actually continuing the good chemistry that they have from SmackDown when they were feuding for the Intercontinental Championship. Good back and forth match between the two. AJ Styles' doorman is still a intimidating presence, even catching Jeff Hardy when he was doing a high risk on the turnbuckle. But of course, we don't see the resolution of that, because once the guy caught Jeff Hardy, it just went straight to commercial. And when they came back, AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy were back in the ring continuing on with their match. But yeah, like I said, good back and forth. These guys do work very well together. And the match ends with both of them standing on the apron. And as Jeff was about to give a twist of fate on the apron, AJ Styles reverses it and shoves him into the turnbuckle, throws him back in, and lands a phenomenal forearm to be the first qualifying member of the Raw team. And then post-match segment, Jeff Hardy's still in the ring, and then Elias shows up out of nowhere and just smashes him with a guitar, continuing that feud. So after that commercial break, the next segment is continuing with the 24/7 title storyline. It's Drew Gulak and Akira Tozawa versus Lucha House Party in a tag team match. And during that match, R-Truth comes out to, as he put it backstage, observe the competition. But with him showing up, of course, everyone wants to go after that 24/7 title, apparently. So as the tag team match was continuing, every member of that match was trying to get a pin on R-Truth to no avail, to even Lince Dorado actually ending the tag team match as he goes for a crossbody, at least attempts to go on a crossbody to R-Truth, but instead hits Drew Gulak, and that gets him the pin 1, 2, 3, ending the tag match to go back to the attempted pinning of R-Truth, winning the 24/7 championship, that shenanigans. And at that point, I honestly don't care. I don't care about the 24/7 title anymore. The whole thing is stupid. I still, at least if they're going to be continuing on with the 24/7 title, at least take it off R-Truth and do something actually interesting with it. Hell, give it to have them run into Lars Sullivan, have him win it, and kind of go with what I said about the idea I pitched earlier in the year about Braun winning it. At least this is when the 24/7 championship was relatively new, and it actually had little relevance, very slim relevance. At least give it to Braun Strowman and have the storyline who can now take that title off this monster of a man. But yeah, but in that case, give it to Lars Sullivan. Update my fantasy booking. But now I at this point I just don't care. Now it's just me throwing random stuff. Next segment is, in my personal opinion, the best segment of the entire show. The most recent episode of the Firefly Funhouse, with Bray Wyatt hosting a Mad Tea Party dressed as the Mad Hatter. Oh man, I love this segment a lot. So Alexa Bliss arrives late, but she did bring her own tea and gave it to Rambling Rabbit, and it's tea with arsenic in it. So yeah, Rambling Rabbit dies again with Alexa Bliss poisoning Rambling Rabbit. Oh, that's great. But of course, on with that, Alexa Bliss also announces that she's going to have a moment of bliss with the new WWE champion, Randy Orton. And of course, Bray Wyatt, knowing the history of Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton, because, the Fiend never forgets, gives a blank stare to the camera and just turns his eyes to focus on the Wyatt family compound burning painting that he did, I believe, the second episode of the Firefly Funhouse. Well, we all know what's going on there. And then he beats up a revived Rambling Rabbit with I think they called it a cross that they used with the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt feud, at least the cross that Randy Orton used to quote quote kill the spirit of Sister Abigail. But yeah, Bray Wyatt's looking forward to a moment of bliss, and that's how that segment ends. The second hour actually begins with another Survivor Series qualifying match with Elias versus Keith Lee. And yeah, this match was all right. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was a very typical match. Of course, Keith Lee trying to be a monster himself, thinking about his last week's encounter with Braun Strowman. But yeah, this match was okay, typical, nothing special. When at the end of the match, when Elias was actually taking advantage of the match, Jeff Hardy's music plays as a distraction for him, so Elias can land a Spirit Bomb to give him the win, and Keith Lee qualifies. Is the second man to qualify for the Raw Survivor Series team. Next up is the never-ending feud, apparently, of the Hurt Business and Retribution in an 8-man tag elimination match. And yeah, this was not good. Simply put, this was terrible. MVP was the only one of the Hurt Business to actually be pinned in this one by Slapjack, of all people, with a distraction, at least a distracting seizure from Mia Yim / Reckoning, whatever the hell she's calling herself. Slapjack gets destroyed by Bobby Lashley. Lashley and T-Bar get themselves counted out. Mace gets pinned by Shelton Benjamin, leaving Mustafa Ali alone with Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, to Ali getting himself disqualified with using a chair. So that makes 0-4 for Retribution. At this point, Retribution's dead. I don't care what they do now with this group. Retribution is dead in the water. There is nothing now they can do to make this group give any relevance to this group at all. This group will never be relevant. At that point, I have it written in my notes. Retribution 0-4. Who the hell cares? And that just sums up pretty much everyone's feeling on Retribution. And when I mean everyone, I mean everyone. Everyone! And that was the second hour. Oh, God. It's Elias and Keith Lee and the Hurt Business of Retribution was all the second hour. I guess that makes it easier on which one was my least favorite hour of this show. But hour 3 begins with the match of Drew McIntyre versus The Miz. And this one didn't really go that very long either. It was actually, I think the match was maybe at least 5 minutes, 7 tops, just to be nice. With Drew selling the fact that he was still feeling the effects on his Hell in a Cell match with Randy Orton, which gave Miz and Morrison at his side in his corner, a little advantage to just beat him while he's down. But of course, Drew, being the awesome man that he is, actually overcomes it, takes down the Miz, and when he gets thrown out, he takes out John Morrison, grabs the Money in the Bank briefcase and chucks it up the ramp, and then just hits a Claymore on Miz for the win. That's it. Actually, this next segment is actually was actually a very confusing one. It was more what the Street Profits did before they won the tag team championships pre-pandemic. It has the New Day actually dressing up as the Street Profits and pretty much announcing the Survivor Series card. At least the Raw champions versus the SmackDown champions matches, with New Day facing the Street Profits, Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn. Wow, I can't believe I almost blanked out with that. And Asuka versus Sasha Banks. And Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns, of course. But yeah, with the reason I tried to end it with Asuka, because Asuka and Sasha Banks, is Asuka actually showing up and kind of celebrating with them, being completely out of her mind crazy, which I love about her. And also, this backstage promo also sets up the future story of the Hurt Business wanting to go for the Raw Tag Team Championship. Oh, well, at least it gives them something to do after they deal with the never-ending feud with Retribution. Let's see. Next segment is another confusing segment. So instead of qualifying matches for the women, well, sort of, we get Adam Pearce pretty much announcing the 4 members of the women's team for Monday Night Raw, with the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Pretty much the 2 undefeated teams of, at least the 2 undefeated women's tag team of Monday Night Raw. And the 5th member will be decided in a fatal 4-way match between Lana, Lacey Evans, Peyton Royce, and Nikki Cross. And it was just a match. Nothing spectacular. The big shocker is Lana actually stealing another victory, adding herself as the final member of the Raw Women's Survivor Series team, only for Nia Jax to Samoan drop her into the announce table for the 6th week in a row. Yay. The main event match was the final Survivor Series qualifying match of the show, with Matt Riddle versus Sheamus. And in all honesty, when it comes to the matches on this show, this one was actually my match of the night. Matt Riddle and Sheamus actually have very, very good chemistry with one another. and it was a very, very physical match. The match ends with Matt Riddle's back giving out, since that was a main focus point for Sheamus throughout the match. His back gives out, which gives Sheamus the time to hit the bro kick and the win for at least the final qualifying match of this night. So the Raw Survivor Series team is AJ Styles, Keith Lee, and Sheamus, with 2 spots remaining. So the main event segment is the Moment of Bliss with Randy Orton. And this was actually a very good segment too. It has a continuing story throughout the show of one, Alexa Bliss announcing it, Randy Orton backstage saying he's not at all concerned about The Fiend. He's not even concerned about Drew McIntyre. So Alexa Bliss brings him out, introduces him, and gives his thought. She asks him for his thoughts on his Hell in a Cell match with Drew McIntyre, and that match really burned the house down. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You get it? So once that came up, Orton was just like, okay, I know what's going on here. I know Bray Wyatt better than anyone. I know that he's close. So I'll just flat out and ask, where is he? Where is the Fiend? And of course, he doesn't get a response from Alexa Bliss other than just her doing her beautiful smile and a nice little giggle. And then out comes Drew McIntyre to actually have a nice, good brawl with Randy Orton, with Alexa Bliss just sitting in the corner, doing her best Harley Quinn laugh, which the lights go out, and out comes the Fiend, standing on the entrance ramp, with Randy Orton right in front of him and Drew McIntyre just standing in the ring. This segment, like this shot, was actually really well done. First, the lights are out. You have Bray Wyatt's screeching music playing. Drew McIntyre is just standing in the ring, or at least on the apron. I'm not 100% sure. And you have Randy Orton just backing up the ramp. He stops. He just takes a deep breath. He knows what's behind him. Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, is just standing behind. Orton just gives that turn, looks at Drew, deciding, okay, I have Drew in front of me. I have the Fiend behind me. Who should I go for? And at that point, he chooses to go after Drew McIntyre. The Fiend fades away, and Raw ends with Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre just continuing beating the shit out of each other. So, all in all, thoughts on this one? Good qualifying matches, especially Matt Riddle versus Sheamus. The Firefly Funhouse / Alexa Bliss were pretty much the highlights of this show for me. The 24/7 title, stuff, the Hurt Business and Retribution, and the women's Survivor Series stuff, I really couldn't care. Well, you know what? Yeah, I really couldn't care less about all the other stuff. All in all, I think I'm gonna give this Raw a very, very low 3 out of 5 classic goatee, and I actually won't change my mind on this one. I'm gonna stick with a very low classic goatee. That Firefly Funhouse and Alexa Bliss segment were awesome, and the Matt Riddle, Sheamus, and AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy specifically. Elias Keith Lee was just okay, nothing great, but AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Matt Riddle and Sheamus were very, very good in-ring matches. So yeah, that's my review of Monday Night Raw. Be sure to join me, Scholar Jeff, the Scholars of Wrestling champion Scholar Brian, and Scholar Charlie this weekend as we give our review for WWE Hell in a Cell. Until then, I'm Scholar Tarek. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Raw Deal. All right. Bye.